The Nürburgring is the ultimate automotive proving ground. In terms of permanent tracks, this one is the longest, has the greatest change in elevation, and is the most dangerous, known by many as the Green Hell. Still, for nearly 100 years, competitors have put their lives on the line, striving for the perfect lap. A record here not only means bragging rights, but can bring huge financial rewards to manufacturers and immortalize cars and drivers. As a result, teams go to extreme lengths trying to shave down their times, even cheating to achieve the results they want before sharing their triumph with the world. Despite the high speeds and perils, the track is open to anyone willing to pay the small toll and accept the huge risks. From F1 legends to backyard tinkerers, all sorts have made the trip to the lush Eiffel Forest of Germany, trying to etch their name into the ring's fabled history. This is a story of records and regret, of danger and deception, and of icons and the impossible. This is the story of the Nürburgring, the Green Hell. The first true practical automobile was the Benz patent motor car, built by Carl Benz himself in 1885. His invention caught on quickly, and it wasn't long before people were racing their newly discovered machines. Of course, there weren't any dedicated racetracks yet, and public roads were used to create temporary courses. The Germans had a jump on the competition and did pretty well in the early days, with the Mercedes winning the 1903 Gordon Bennett Cup and earning the right for Germany to host the event the following year. The course was marked out through the Taunus Forest in 1904, but this year it was a French team that claimed victory. To seek redemption, the Kaiser decided to host his own event at the same course in 1907 called the Kaiser Prize, or Emperor's Prize Auto Race. This time, the race was a disaster, with a German driver and co-driver killed and an Italian driver winning in a Fiat. The course was never raced at again, and the Kaiser began planning to build a real track, where German engineers and drivers could hone their skills. But before a plan was put in motion, World War I struck. The German economy was destroyed, hyperinflation spiraled out of control, and unemployment rates began to skyrocket. Everyone was scrambling to find a solution, including Dr. Otto Kreutz, who had all kinds of ideas, including a wood processing plant and a silver fox farm. But he also happened to be the chair of the ADAC, an automobile club that raced in the area and pushed for a dedicated racetrack similar to the Targa Florio in Italy. He managed to convince the mayor of Cologne and future chancellor of Germany to fund the project and employ thousands of locals to build the track in the town of Nürburg, which roughly means Black Castle due to the medieval fortress built well over 800 years ago. With so many people looking for work and over 14 million Reichsmarks to work with, it only took 2 years to complete the gigantic racetrack encircling the Nürburg Castle. The original course consisted of a south loop known as Südschleife that was around 4.8 miles long, a north loop, Nordschleife, at 14.2 miles long, and a smaller loop for connecting the two larger ones, warming up the cars and to start races. When the track first opened, many racers ran the entire course, or Gesamtstrecke, which was 17.6 miles long. The first ever race was the ADAC's Eifelrennen, which had motorcycles race the first day and then cars the next. Mercedes was back on top, claiming first, second, and third, led by the driver, Rudolf Caracciola, who became the first ever master of the ring, the Ringmeister. The event was a huge success, with tens of thousands of fans in attendance who were eager to drive the road for themselves. And they were allowed, with the ring operating as a toll road right from the beginning, another part of the plan to revitalize the impoverished region. More events came to the new track, like the German Grand Prix, and in 1931, the race moved to just the north loop, the Nordschleife. At this time, the fastest lap was an 11:48 in a Bugatti T51, although this would quickly fall to 11:42 and then a 10:49 in an Alfa Romeo, then a 10:43 in an Auto Union Type A, and then to a 10:32 in a W25 Mercedes, one of the early Silver Arrows. There's a famous rumor that the night before the 1934 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, the W25s weighed in at 751 kilograms, just over the 750 kilogram max weight, and that the team decided to strip away the white paint to shave off just enough. As a result, the aluminum body was revealed, and the Silver Arrow was born, a moniker still used by Mercedes F1 cars today. However, this story isn't really true. There were no weight restrictions at the time, and the name was actually coined a couple years prior, although some spectators thought that those cars looked less like arrows and more like silver pickles. Still, the new Mercedes were quick, and they traded wins and record times with their German rival, Auto Union, right up until World War II began. The track was heavily damaged from tank traffic, but was repaired for racing to resume in 1947, although the Germans were excluded until 1951, and took a while to bounce back to form, leaving room for the record to be broken by Ferrari, Maserati, and then Vanwall, which became the first British manufacturer to ever win the German Grand Prix, thanks to the driving prowess of Tony Brooks, while Stirling Moss clocked the fastest lap time at 9 minutes and 9 seconds. But the Germans returned in force, with the lightweight 461kg Porsche 804 lapping the course in just 8:47, with the American Cannonball winner Dan Gurney behind the wheel. Ferrari would chip away at the record before Lotus dropped it to an 8:24 and then 8:16 in 1966. The cars were getting incredibly fast, but they were making the dangerous track even more deadly, and the death toll at the course rose above 30 drivers. In an attempt to make the track safer, a chicane was added before the start-finish straight to reduce the speed of cars entering the pits. The new addition did little to slow down the speeds or the deaths, and Sir Jackie Stewart nicknamed the track the Green Hell after winning the German Grand Prix in 1968. The lap times continued to fall year after year, with the Brabham achieving a 7:42 in 1969. But the death toll seemed to mirror the increasingly fast cars, and after 5 deaths in 1970, F1 drivers boycotted the track until significant changes were made. Nürburgring went through extensive modifications to smooth the bumps and jumps, straighten some sections, while slowing down more dangerous ones, with safety barriers in case of any mishaps. Still, cars continued to get faster and faster, and by 1974, famed F1 driver Niki Lauda was the first and only driver ever to crack the 7-minute barrier on the full 22.8km Nordschleife, clocking a 6:58 in a Ferrari test session. Niki was incredibly talented and understood the extreme dangers that came with the territory. In 1976, he was leading in points and had the fastest lap times, but asked his fellow F1 drivers to boycott the race, explaining that there weren't anywhere near enough fire marshals and safety vehicles around the giant course. However, the majority voted to race, and on just the second lap, on a partially wet course, part of the Ferrari's rear suspension failed, causing a horrific accident and leaving Niki trapped in the wreckage, enduring severe burns and toxic fumes. It would take far too long for the fire trucks, ambulances, and even the Porsche 911 rescue car to arrive. But thankfully, fellow drivers were able to extract Niki from the burning car. He would later fall into a coma and was read his last rites, but managed to recover and would return to racing just 40 days later, going on to win more F1 championships and furthering his outstanding legacy. But this marked the end of F1 racing at the Nordschleife. New safety regulations made it impossible to race at the Nürburgring anymore, and so the South Loop and the start-finish ring were torn up to build a new, far safer course, known as Grand Prix Strecke, literally Grand Prix course. During construction, F2 and other races still competed at Nordschleife, and in 1983, the ring was shorter than before, with the bypass avoiding the construction of GP Strecke. This meant that after nearly a decade, Niki's record would finally be broken by a BMW-powered March F2 car, although it didn't last long, as soon the world would witness what would become known as the Impossible Lap, and a record that many thought would never be broken. The vehicle that set the record wasn't a Formula car, but a Porsche 956, racing in Group C. The twin turbocharged flat 6 was good for over 600 horsepower, and the car generated triple the downforce of the 917 thanks to Norbert Singer's ingenuity, who coined the Singer dent and is part of why Singer Vehicle Designs chose their name. The driver was 25-year-old Stefan Bellof, who managed to take pole position through traffic with a time so impossible, some people thought it must have been a mistake. Bellof had averaged over 200 kilometers an hour and made his way around Nordschleife in just 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Even Norbert Singer was at a loss for words, and the other competitors joked and commented on the incredible feat. Stefan Bellof had cemented himself as one of the most talented young drivers on the planet. Unfortunately, just a couple of years later, Beloff passed away while driving a 956 at Spa, but his record would go on for decades and his legacy even longer, with one of the turns at Nordschleife bearing his name. When the far safer GP Strecke was finally finished in 1984, the very first race was hosted by Mercedes, named the Nürburgring Race of Champions. They invited 20 of the top drivers from around the world, including 9 Formula 1 champions, to compete in identical cars, all in new, sportier 190Es modified for the race, 10 of which were painted silver and 10 painted black. Among the star-studded grid was a driver who was relatively unknown at the time, a driver from Brazil, Ayrton Senna. Niki Lauda was also competing, although he missed practice and qualified 14th. Still, he managed to work his way through the field and finished in second place, not quite able to catch the winner, Ayrton Senna, who ended up getting a 190E of his own. For many, this race put him on the map, as it showed that in equal machinery he could compete and win against the best in the world, which he would go on to do again and again. While the first race at GP Strecke was a success and F1 again returned to the Nürburgring for a couple years, there were all sorts of issues, and the German Grand Prix, which GP Strecke had been built for, instead went to Hockenheim on contract for the next 20 years. However, thanks to Michael Schumacher, Germans were keen for more racing, and F1 returned to the Nürburgring again for over a decade under a variety of different names. Unfortunately, the F1 events weren't a golden goose, and the Nürburgring started losing money with the rising host fees and a decrease in spectators willing to pay for more expensive tickets. With financial, legal, and political struggles, the track was in and out of the F1 schedule for years. To continue, the Nürburgring would have to find another way to make money. Thankfully, the Nordschleife had retained its legendary status, and was hosting a wide range of events, from the 24 Hours of Nürburgring and legendary DTM series to the Trut Grand Prix and the Rock am Ring Music Festival. With the general public looking to buy sportier cars, manufacturers began testing more and more at the ring too. An engineer explained that the Nordschleife's length, diversity of turns, and elevation provided 5 times more data than most tracks. Porsche had been recording the lap times of their production cars since the 1950s, but as more manufacturers came to the ring and began sharing their times, rivalries began to heat up, and there was money to be made. The media started to get involved, and magazines published times, like a Ferrari Testarossa clocking a 9:17 in 1987. A couple years later, the Japanese car show, Best Motoring, came to the ring to show off what Japanese cars could do. They'd been benchmarking Nissan's R32 GTR, known by many as Godzilla, and wanted to prove to the world what the car could achieve at the most notorious track. The conditions were damp, but with an extremely skilled Motoharu Gonsan Kurosawa manning the revolutionary car, it still achieved an impressive 822. Kurosawa would continue to make the trip to Germany each year, and continued lowering his time in various cars, with an 816 in a Honda NSX in 1990, then an 808 in a Porsche 911 Turbo in 1991, and then an 803 in 1992, driving a Honda NSXR. To take the production car record, Bugatti showed up with their team racing driver and what was the fastest car in the world at the time, the Bugatti EB110. Thanks to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 turbochargers and 4-wheel drive, the car made it around the ring in 7 minutes and 44 seconds in 1993. The German car magazine Sport Auto focused on ring records and even had a trophy for new record holders each year. They tested a wide range of cars, including the Bugatti EB110, but only achieved an 801 in their run. It would take a while before production cars caught up to the Bugatti, although there were some strong modified competitors, like a Mark IV Supra by Blitz, which ran a 749 on street tires in 1997. To equal the Bugatti, it would take until 2002, when the Pagani Zonda S would also hit a 744, although the driver was Horst von Sarma, the chief editor at Sport Auto. While he was an editor, Horst became an expert at the Nordschleife through the hundreds of cars he benchmarked, and the following year, he crushed the record in a Porsche Carrera GT with a 732, a record which wouldn't be broken until the legendary driver Walter Röhrl hopped behind the wheel, and shaved off another 4 seconds, bringing the record down to a 728. Many thought this record would hold for ages, but just a few months later, an unusual challenger from the Netherlands would attack the record, a Donkervoort D8 RS. This hand-built car may not have been as powerful or as pretty as the Porsche, but it was extremely light and handled extremely well, hitting a 714. While some questioned the validity of the unusual car's run, it was fully street legal. Next, the record would return to the Germans, this time in the form of the Gumpert Apollo. Roland Gumpert had worked as the chief engineer and head of Audi's motorsport program, but after retiring from the role, he decided he wanted to build a full-on race car which was still street legal. The result was a lightweight, twin-turbo supercar, able to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat, and lap the ring in just 7 minutes and 11 seconds. This time, the record wouldn't even last a week, before a radical SR8 LM showed up and ran a 6:48. This was an incredible time, and while there were ways to get the radical street legal, many denied the record, including Sport Auto themselves. And so, the first true production car to break the 7-minute barrier was the Porsche 918 Spyder, which achieved a 6:57. The cutting-edge hybrid hypercar sported all kinds of incredible technology, along with the optional WISAC package, $84,000 to shave off a few more pounds. McLaren went to the ring shortly after, and said they had also broken the 7-minute barrier, but they didn't share the exact time, leading many to believe they hadn't quite beat the 918's record. Cars were getting so advanced that it was becoming increasingly difficult to shave off any more time while staying street legal, and some manufacturers began pushing the boundaries. Just 2 months after the 918's triumph, Nissan ran a 708 in a Nismo Edition GTR, claiming the volume production car record. However, it later came out that the car had been extensively modified to set the time, with a bigger spoiler, softer dampers designed for the bumpy track, different brake pads, bucket seats, and even a new ECU map. Technically, Nismo would sell you these parts, and you could set up your car this way, but it was a far cry from a volume offering. Porsche had been skeptical about Nissan's times for quite a while now, and even bought a 2008 GTR to test themselves after Nissan reported a 729 in the car, far faster than any of the 911s could muster. When they got the car, the best they could run was a 754, which caused them to believe that Nissan had made some drastic changes, such as using racing tires. As there were no governing bodies or true official records, manufacturers were incentivized to push the boundaries, and a positive ring result was nearly the best marketing around. And so, controversy would continue to surround records going forward, including when the 918's record finally fell, this time to Lamborghini's Huracan Performante. In October of 2016, the Performante clocked a 6:52, a time which some thought was a little too unbelievable. The YouTube creator Misha Sharudin scrutinized the onboard footage, comparing top speeds and quartering speeds to those of the 918, while pointing out strange glitches in the recording, where the speed would suddenly jump drastically or a shadow would move unnaturally. Many thought that the footage was sped up and played at 25 frames per second instead of 24, or that the time was the result of the best splits added together. Lamborghini barked back, sharing a log of the run and explaining that part of the reason the car was so fast was the Pirelli Trofeo R tires, which would be available with the car. However, many were still not convinced.
I have great trouble with the video they showed, with the telemetry that they showed, with the frame rate of their video, and I personally am very skeptical.
Controversy continues to this day. Earlier this year, the new Civic Type R reclaimed the quote-unquote official front-wheel drive record with a time of 7:44. Honda admitted the car was a special model, called the Type RS, that was lighter and only available in left-hand drive European markets, but many still weren't convinced. Accusations of increased boost pressure arose, along with shorter gears, validated by savvy enthusiasts who noticed a significant discrepancy in the engine frequency when compared to stock models at the same speed and gear. In an attempt to regulate laps, the organizers decided to step in and make some changes, including ditching the practice of competitors starting the timer at the end of the straight and stopping it before the start of the straight, an old timing method which would allow drivers to finish a lap and pull off before committing to another. Now, competitors must drive an extra 0.14 miles and complete a full lap from start to finish, just as Stefan Beloff did way back in 1983. Many thought that this lap time would never be broken, as while technology may have yielded the potential to make faster cars after 30 years of development, it would seem insane to bring such a vehicle to the Nordschleife. While many dreamed and postulated what a modern F1 car could do at the track, Porsche decided to do one better, and bring a car which may have been faster than a modern F1 car, the 919 Evo. The 919 had an extremely successful racing career, winning the LMP1 class of the World Endurance Championship in 2015, 2016, and 2017, and also winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans the same 3 years in a row. After dominating so heavily, Porsche decided to retire the 919 from competition, and instead they decided to show the world what it could really do, and modified it into the unshackled 919 Evo. With less weight, more power, and way more aero, they decided it was time to crush some records. At Spa, the car set a time 12 seconds faster than it had achieved the previous year, and even beat out Lewis Hamilton's time in his F1 car. At Nordschleife, the lap was nothing less than incredible, with Timo Bernard hanging on while adjusting to a car unlike anything else. Through the lap, he managed to average 234 km an hour and hit a top speed of 369 as the car bounced around, pushing more on the limits of the human body than those of the car. The footage speaks for itself, and while there was some room for improvement, to many, this lap is one of the most impressive automotive feats ever, finally smashing Beloff's record after 35 years, with an insane time of 5 minutes and 19 seconds, a record which still stands today. A year later, VW's IDR decided to make a run after claiming the record at Pikes Peak. It wasn't anywhere near as quick as the Porsche, but it still managed to beat Beloff's time and take the EV record with an impressive 6:05. While there may be vehicles out there that could potentially challenge the 919, it's unlikely we'll see them risk it at the dangerous track anytime soon, and instead, the focus has returned to the production car record. Right now, the fastest production cars are mainly Porsches, a couple Lamborghinis, and some Mercedes, including one which holds the top spot, the Mercedes AMG 1. A far cry from the Benz patent motor car at the start of this story, the AMG 1 has a 1.6-liter V6 and 4 electric motors, one for the crankshaft, one for the turbo, and 2 on the front axle, working together to produce over 1,000 horsepower. The car has all kinds of F1 technology, including a full carbon body and a 2-part extendable wing with DRS. The result was an incredible 635 on the road course, even on a damp track, way ahead of any other production car. While impressive, many argue that the obsession over decreasing lap times is actually harmful to the car industry, as it creates cars that are only good at the Nordschleife and don't perform as well outside of the ring. However, while there may be some truth in this statement, the ring records don't seem to be going anywhere, and companies continue to strive to lower their times and brag of their accomplishments to the world. Beyond lap times, the ring is filled with incredible stories, like the Queen of the Nürburgring, Sabine Schmitz. Sabine grew up in a village right inside the ring, and became an expert at the track, driving over 20,000 laps through her career, most of which happened in her ring taxi, which she used to scare passengers and embarrass supercars. She put her experience to good use, and even won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring back-to-back in '96 and '97. Unfortunately, Sabine died from cancer at 51 years old, but her legacy lives on, with the first corner of the ring named in her honor. The Nürburgring is far from perfect, with a history of mishaps and terrible accidents, but for many, these rough edges, perils, and precarious turns are part of the allure of the iconic track. For once, I don't have to warn you to stay home, as you can make the pilgrimage to Germany and drive the track for yourself or ride along with another driver. Just be safe and aware of the potential costs involved if something goes wrong. Much like the Nürburgring, the internet can also be a dangerous and difficult place to navigate, but thankfully there's NordVPN, the sponsor of this video. A VPN, or virtual private network, helps protect your online privacy and allows you to mask your IP address. It's more than just security though, and can be used in a variety of ways. Personally, I rely on Nord for when I'm making these videos, as I often can't read certain articles or watch certain videos because of where I live. But Nord allows me to move my virtual address to bypass these geo-blockers and view the content. I have some friends who also use this function to watch their favorite shows and streams they otherwise wouldn't be able to view in their country. Right now, you can go to nordvpn.com/huntersmoon for a variety of exclusive deals, including a 2-year plan with an additional 4 months for free. This is risk-free too, as all plans have a 30-day money-back guarantee if for whatever reason you decide it's not your thing. Again, that's nordvpn.com/huntersmoon, or click on the link down below for exclusive deals risk-free. Check it out for yourself and see how Nord can work for you. Thank you as always for watching and supporting the channel. I apologize in advance for any mispronunciation, but I hope you still enjoyed the video and that you have a great day.